Now playing in a world where we're not sure if we want to go back to the theaters. I know my usual intro on this show is if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. But technically, I'm not here right now because I'm on vacation. But that doesn't mean we're leaving the digital space entirely. What we're doing right now for while I'm away is we're calling this the Critics Corner. What we're doing is we're diving into the streaming services and the television services and trying to find some gems and trying to find some stuff that you miss. And on today's episode, we got a good one. Usually, we're diving into things like Netflix, Crave, Prime, Disney, but because of today's guest, we're making a special exception because she actually works there now. We're talking with the one and only Teri Hart. Teri, how are you doing today?
Hello. Happy vacation to you. Happy non-vacation to me. How did that work out?
I planned it about 3 months. I planned it like last year, so I'm
Well, I'm
well
thrilled
ahead of the
for you.
curve.
And whenever I hear anybody getting out of the city or breaking up the monotony of what the past 18 months has been, I applaud you, sir. So I hope that you enjoy.
The irony is I'm basically going into a cottage and still isolating, but it's just I have a better view. So
Well, hey, anything that allows you to jump in a lake every once in a while is good by my books.
exactly. But on this one, like I said, we're making a special exception because Terry now works for the Super Channel. And
I
if you can tell us a
do.
little bit about that just before we get into the movie, that'd be great.
Sure. Super Channel is a 24-hour movie service, movie and series. They've got all kinds of really interesting content that some of it goes back a while, some of it is relatively new. I'm having a blast diving into a lot of this content. It goes back to it's almost like my origin story around movies and when I started. So that's an awful lot of fun for me. I mean, I've talked about movies from Good Will Hunting to The King's Speech, and also, tinier, smaller movies that I feel, really deserve a spotlight. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. A movie. I might mention a second one. I might slip two in there because
Do
that's the
it.
kind of girl I am. But the first movie, and I know you're a fan of this movie too, Dave, which excites me, is a Canadian movie called From the Vine. From the Vine, it's on Super Channel Fuse right now. That's where you can check it out. It stars Joe Pantoliano, Wendy Crewson, and Paula Brancotti. The three of them are a family. Joey Pants. Am I allowed to call him Joey Pants?
It's my show. You can call him Joey Pants.
I think that's what people in the industry call him. So Joe Pantoliano stars as the father who has a bit of a crisis. I don't know if it's midlife or later than midlife, but he decides to take off and go back home to Italy and rediscover his roots. All of this to the chagrin of his wife, played by Wendy Crewson, his daughter, played by Paula Brancotti, and they all have some learnings to do about themselves and each other as a family. But it's more than that. It's directed by Sean Cisterna, who is a really, really great filmmaker. They somehow elevate this material. I think that Joe Pantoliano is like, at first I was kind of like, what? I was a little like circumspect about the casting because he's such a type, right? Like
Yeah.
we have these expectations of him, and he doesn't play that type at all in this. And I feel like watching him, like, this part came to him at exactly the right time in his life. Like, I
Oh,
feel
totally.
like, doesn't it feel like that to you too, Dave? Like, he really, I mean, I'm gonna sound actory, although I'm not an actor. He really does inhabit this character. And when you see a character that we've watched for so many years, like Joe Pantoliano, when we see him take on a new kind of challenge and sink his teeth into it in a way that it's like he kind of was like fitting into a coat that he forgot he had in his closet for a while. If you're Canadian listening to this, that coat might still have a dollar bill or a $2 bill, not a loony or a toonie in it. But it's a well-worn fit for him and kind of surprising for an audience to watch.
And it's one of those things because I mean, historically, we're so used to Joey Pants in that sort of weaselly supporting role, not really carrying films, but he is so fantastic and so understated here as sort of this guy at a crossroads, having that quote unquote midlife crisis, sort of, living the dream that we'd all love to live, go and open a wine, a
Yeah.
vineyard in Italy.
Yeah, and I mean, he has to reconcile with some of his previous behavior in terms of his daughter and telling her what she can and can't do in life. And she has to reconcile some of her expectations of who her parents are and are not. All of this speaks to a lot of things that I think a lot of us have been exploring in our own lives around COVID, and
Mm.
how we want to spend our time and what our time is worth doing. And that's really at the heart of From the Vine. So I think it's although made long before pandemic, I think it's one of those movies that has more resonance now than the filmmakers could have ever imagined it would have. So and we got to give a shout out to Wendy Crewson, who is always fantastic. Really, I mean, she's Canadian royalty. I think she's
At this
just
stage,
such
I think you're right. Yeah.
yeah, I think she's just such a fine actor. And seeing her play around with, Joe Pantoliano and the fun that I think that it seems that they were obviously having is a joy to watch. We throw around like coming of age a lot, but it's usually around like teen shows or like, high school movies. Like that Netflix show with Maitreyi, the Canadian, Mindy Kaling produced it. It's called Never Have I Ever. It's called, that's like the typical coming of age show. But there's a lot about From the Vine that I think is a coming of age story, just at a different part of your life. And we see that for Joe Pantoliano. I still can't call him anything but Joey Pants. Wendy Crewson, and also Paula Brancati, who not only stars in the movie, but she also produced it. So yay, Paula.
No, and I mean, yeah, I've got to give shout out to Paula, because I mean, she really is she's worked with Sean Cisterna before. And I mean, I definitely think she's one of the more interesting sort of people up and coming in the Canadian film scene, because she is a real talent. And I mean, when you watch this film, she really is holding her own with Joey, with Wendy. And I mean, it's really very much sort of a three-way character duel throughout the entire film. And it's a lot of fun to watch. And I mean, I think this film really is a great example of just sort of the strength of Canadian filmmaking that we're really seeing these days, because this is such a universal story, but it's not clunky. It's not ham-handed. It's very honest. It feels very genuine from beginning to end.
Yep, I totally agree. These are people that I feel like just, could be walking the streets of Toronto or any other city in North America and, transplanted by choice to a part of Italy that we don't see very often. They're not in, Tuscany. They're not in Rome. They're in a smaller town that I'm not even going to try to pronounce because I'm sure I'll mess it up because I am not Italian. But it's a beautiful, beautiful part of the country. And it also serves a bit of that wanderlust that maybe people have been not being able to fulfill for the past little while, to transport yourself to a place like this small
After
town
60 months, I think we've all got that right now.
Absolutely. And I'm going to throw in another one.
Do it.
That's also just because I'm here. I'm gonna talk as much as I can about these movies that I'm falling in love with and falling in love with anew. I don't know if you've seen this movie. I hadn't. It got by me. It's another Canadian movie, which I'm loving. The richness that's going on in Canadian movies right now. It's called All Joking Aside. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. Tell me about it.
Okay, so it's on Super Channel Fuse as well, and it has a performance by a Canadian actor by the name of Raylene Harewood. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She stars as an aspiring stand-up comic who, on an open mic night, just bombs and is heckled, and she ends up finding out that the heckler was a kind of renowned stand-up comic of his time. So she hires him to teach her his ways. And this actor, Raylene Harewood is her name, is spectacular. She's like so easy in the role. And this is complicated. Like, we're watching her become a good comic, and she really does. The jokes are good in it. And the guy who plays Bob is Brian Markinson. Mm-hmm. And his advice to her about becoming a better comic is actually really well founded. So there's actually good advice about the comedy world. I think Mark Breslin is an executive producer on it, so it's got like it really does have that feel for anybody who's been to a comedy club as an audience member. And I really loved it. I hope to see lots more of this Raylene Harewood actor, and it's directed by a person by the name of Shannon Coley. Again, I'm unfamiliar with, but high recommend. It was really enjoyable.
And you know what? I mean, I just looked it up myself on the Super Channel website. I mean, I think what I'm really loving just about the Super Channel, because the more I started to dig into it, the more I realized sort of how much Canadian content is actually on the Super Channel. It's really kind of a beautiful thing. And I mean, I laugh because I started wanting to do this segment because, and I mean, this is something you and I both know, because we'll have friends outside the industry who go, "Oh, well, I've watched everything on Netflix." It's like, no, you haven't. Shut up. No, you haven't. Do the work, start looking
Nobody
for stuff.
has.
That's the point. Exactly.
Ted
But
Sarandos hasn't watched everything on Netflix.
I should hope not. He's got a company to run.
Fair point.
But there is, like, honest to God, if Super Channel is available as one of the either sort of through your cable package or via Amazon Prime as one of the external channels that you can add on, and if you want to catch up on some Canadian cinema, there is so much good stuff here that really falls under the radar that really deserves such an audience. And I mean, I'm happy you're there, and I'm happy Super Channel is a thing, because anything that promotes Canadian content is a beautiful thing as far as I'm concerned.
You and me both, buddy. I've been shooting that, yelling that from the skies, or whatever that turn of phrase is, for about 26 years now, and I will continue to do so. And I'm having a great time watching a lot of stuff that I've already seen, as I said, and discovering new things, like all joking aside,
Sure.
it's a good one. I think you'll dig it. You're gonna go watch it on Super Channel, Dave?
I think, you know what, there's a sale on the channels right now. I think I may just sign up for the Super Channel right now and fire it up. You've got a
Whoop, whoop.
sale.
I never thought of myself as that, but I mean, I listen. I mean, it's $10 a month. There's a lot of good stuff right there, and they also have Upright, which is an 8-part series from Australia. Tim Minchin, and again, another huge discovery. Young girl by the name of Millie Alcock, who I think is going to be huge, like coming out of Australia, like exploding. 8-part, half hours each, really digestible, easy content, road trip movie, trying to deliver a piano across the country of Australia, from Sydney to Perth, I believe.
Cool.
And the shenanigans that they get into, how they ended up together, and lots of poignancy, as well as some really, really funny, great stuff.
Now, I got to ask you, do you think we're in the golden age of watching stuff these days? Just because, I mean, I look at all the services and I look at all the content out there, and it's just like, I know it's sounding like a shill, but there's so much good stuff.
There is so much good stuff. I think that I think what's interesting about right now is how much of an appetite there is for nostalgia.
Yeah.
People are really wanting to go back and revisit. I think that there's something about, needing that idea of hot cocoa or a warm cup of tea, or whatever your jam is in terms of comfort. And there's lots out there for people. I mean, one of the movies I talked about on Super Channel, I call them the Teri Hart Super Channel Super Picks, is Dirty Dancing. And I was like, I haven't watched Dirty Dancing in a dog's age. My goodness, does it hold up? It is so fun. It's almost like, I think it's kind of a perfectly structured movie.
Yeah.
And the choreography is fantastic. Kenny Ortega did the choreography.
That's true.
Slouch,
Yeah.
Went on to an incredible career. And the politics were really interesting for the time. I mean, it was released in 1986, I think, something like that.
You're right. Yeah.
And man, oh man, that movie holds up. And it holds up also in just the right level of cheese factor too, right? Because it's just cheesy enough. So and the reason I bring it up is because talking about nostalgia and how many people are like, binge watching Law and Order episodes. And it's like, go back and watch Jerry Orbach in Dirty Dancing. That's the Jerry Orbach you need in your life.
Now, I think we both have to go tell our friend Richard Krause to do that right now, because he's sitting at home watching Law and Order episodes right now.
I think you're right.
But you know what, Teri, thank you so much for screaming it from the mountaintop, as always, when it comes to Canadian cinema. And thanks for being a friend. Thanks for the time today.
Thanks, pal. You have a great weekend. Soak up that nature.
I will, for sure. And thank you again, Teri, and just keep doing the good work.
Thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
You got it. And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.